The views and opinions expressed by the guests and hosts of this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Lansdowne Public Library or its affiliates.
Hello and welcome to the Lansdowne Public Library's Geek Out podcast,
where we geek out about just about anything.
Today we have a very special guest. To those of you who haven't been here recently, we have a brand new children's librarian, and they're joining us today. Ready to introduce yourself?
How's it going, everybody? My name is Brad, also known as Mr. Brad.
Welcome. And today, we're talking about drums.
Yes, we are. Kind of an odd concept, children's services and drums, but we're going to dig into it.
From what I've experienced up at the front desk, hearing some very percussive story times in the past, I don't think it's that different.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, of the musical instruments, I think kids would be kind of drawn to drums. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you'll get a fun sound out of it. You try and do something with a saxophone and you don't know what you're doing, you may not get any sounds out of it other than the clicking of keys.
That's the amazing thing that happened about 2 weeks ago. We had a story time when I pulled out every drum that we could find, even the broken ones, and the box of drums, and I laid them out, and I said, go ahead and grab an instrument. There's drums here, there's little tambourines, there's all sorts of things that make noise. And there are little babies getting instruments, like 5-year-old kids, and they're grabbing the instruments, and immediately they're starting to bang on them. And it sounded crazy at first, but then give it a couple minutes, it sounded beautiful. Even babies know from the start how to find that rhythm. Percussion
I've often heard called, the heartbeat of a song, and, it's very true. If you can't keep a rhythm, your body's doing it all the time, whether you like it or not. You can just sort of feel for that.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite things, is feeling the heartbeat. If things are, just in life are going a little bit crazy, things are tough, slow down and listen to your heart, feel it. And then get in sync with that, get on that heartbeat tempo. And then over time, you can bring that down. You can bring your body's state of heightened anxiety, you can bring it down just focusing on that beat. And that's one of my favorite things. That helps me out every day.
So I guess we'll get into it with, what do drums mean to you? Do you play drums, or are you just a fan?
I am everything. Fan and player. I have a long history with drums. My dad showed me his drum kit when I was 3. He had an old 70s Ludwig Beatles kit that he showed me and played for me. And saw that, and I was instantly enamored with it. Also, the picture of the drummer from Kiss was on the bass drum, and that also helped kind of like, oh yeah, I'm there. So I tinkered around on that for a while, and then took drum lessons and played drums all throughout my childhood. That was my escape from just like kid stuff when you're in school. I would go upstairs and start bashing away. Then, I've been a musician my whole life. Took music lessons, went to college for music education. It's always been a part of me. And then, a couple years ago in Arizona, I happened to join a band and was in a fairly aggressive heavy metal band.
Nice.
So it's, again, drums keep coming full circle back in my life. I'm a fan, musician, but it also is I guess I would say a total body and soul workout. Physically, if you're doing everything that you're supposed to, you're using all 4 limbs. You're also using your neck to hold everything in check physically, but you're also using your brain to, do counting, do math in your head while you're playing. Hit the right drum at the right time. Don't hit that drum there. Make sure everything is in check. Make sure everything is in tempo. Make sure your breathing is good. Make sure you're not going to pass out, and keeping focus so you don't mess up and throw the whole band off. It's the best of both worlds for me. Also makes me very happy. The endorphin release is quite amazing, especially if you're locked in musically. If you're locked in with someone else or a band, there's nothing like it that I've experienced.
I never even thought about so much as, keeping time, but talking about doing math and all sorts of stuff in your head. I guess because you're so distracted when you see like a band on stage, you see the guitarist or the singer and the drummers are sort of in the back, but they are really kind of holding everything together.
If you are listening to a band and the drummer drops a stick, or the drummer stops, or the mic pops, or there's some kind of a downturn in the show and there's no drum sound, instantly. If a guitar player, loses something, it's noticeable, but it's not that big of a deal. If the heartbeat of that song or that band drops out, you know right away. And on the performance side, as a frequent stick dropper myself, if that stick drops and you're not keeping time with something, you notice it and it throws your whole core off, your whole soul off. And those are the parts that I couldn't stand. Sticks were flying on stage at a contest performance. We were up for a festival performance in Germany, and I went to hit a drum, and the stick flew right out of my hand. And I rushed and tried to keep time with something else while I grabbed that other stick. But you feel it, and it kind of throws you off for a second. But if you're able to get your body and soul back in check, it's good stuff.
Wow, okay. So we're going to get back to this in Germany bit in a second here, because I have many more questions. But what kind of... So you play a drum set.
I do. Yeah.
Do you play any other kinds of drums?
I can play everything else. I have a couple conga drums at home and a drum kit. I don't have any other drums, other than that, but I have the ability to play anything. I can turn anything into a drum. This table, which don't turn now. But yeah, that's kind of the fun thing is finding something to turn into a drum. You can turn your blinker in your car into a drum. When I'm in the car and I hear a blinker, I'm already kind of formulating a drum beat from that.
Yeah.
You get the steady beep, and then I add the other things around it. Like I can hit a cymbal there while it's in between clicks on the blinker.
Yeah, it is one of those things that I guess just sort of subconsciously, similarly, it's anytime I hear a blinker, I'm just like, that's a metronome. That is keeping a beat. Mm-hmm. It's keeping a very specific beat. And it's funny because that can even let you know if something's off in the car, because if that beat changes, it means your electricity's wrong somewhere.
Exactly. It's that heartbeat. If your heartbeat goes awry, if you're in a car yourself, you need to get it checked out.
Very good health advice. Yep. And automotive advice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I similarly, I have been a drummer as well for a good chunk of my life. Originally, I wanted to play the saxophone, but nobody in the school had access to a saxophone. So they tried to give me one of the other woodwinds, and I hated it immediately because it looked ugly. So they were like, just play the drums. And not as good with the kit. I mostly do, I did marching band in school, and I marched with a Celtic band, the First Highland Watch, which my uncle was one of the bagpipists for. We didn't get to go to Germany, but I did once get to do St. Patrick's Day at the Flyers game.
Hey, that's awesome.
And we got to go in the VIP box that was owned by the manager, essentially. And that was really cool.
That's crazy. That's cool. I was also in marching band. Did not play drums. I was the tuba player in the marching band, so that might be a whole other story. But yeah, that's great.
Actually, a lot of musicians in the library, from what I understand, which is really cool, I bet.
I'm picking up on that. I've been here 3 months, I think, and I'm kind of picking up that Alex plays, Bill plays, you play. It's pretty amazing.
Have one whole jam session.
I mean, we would be a very weird band.
There'd be a niche. I guarantee it would be a niche.
Just call us Bill and the Librarians, and we'll be off to the races.
That's not a terrible name. That's not a terrible...
It has a ring to it.
I've heard worse.
So I take it drum kit is definitely your favorite.
It is. It's my favorite. It's the first thing I saw, and then when I got a little bit older, it was my first, besides homes and all that stuff, it was my first major purchase. Here's this chunk of money that I don't have to spend on anything else. What I'm going to do, drum set. And then all the things that come with it. The drum heads, the cymbals, the cracked cymbals, the repairs, the pedals, the screws, all that stuff. So, yeah, it's my favorite, and I can jam out to anything. I'll put anything on the headphones and try to play along with it. I played in church bands before. That was kind of fun, going from metal band rehearsal performance on Saturday night, then wake up Sunday at 7:30 and go play church drums for an hour, and then go back and forth. That was about 3 years of my life. That was amazing. It's my favorite thing to do. Just sit on a throne, drum stool, and look at it and hit one thing, and things start flowing. And I get beats, sounds, and tones, and let's go for it.
So I gotta ask, as a metalhead, what kind of metal were you? Was the band that you were in?
I was in a symphonic metal band.
Nice.
Yeah, that band they started out as a cover band for the band Nightwish.
Nice.
And they spent the first 5 years of their history doing covers. And then when I came along, they had already written their first album and played on a lot of those songs during concerts and things. And then during rehearsals and jam sessions, played Nightwish songs, played Rush songs, played Dream Theater songs, played anything that we could think of. Just went for it. And that was the cool thing about that band is we all had kind of the same musical influences, and we were all skilled enough we could tap into that at a moment's notice and just go with it and put together something pretty cool.
That seems like a pretty easy lead into, well, who are those musical influences for you?
There are quite a few. First would be the drummer from Led Zeppelin, John Bonham. That was my dad's favorite in the rock genre. When my dad was younger, he kind of looked like him too. So I kind of put the two and two, put them together. Like with him, it was the heaviness of his hits and how flawlessly he put things together. It all sounded great, and you can listen to a drum beat, strip all the instruments away, you can hear the drum beat, and you know automatically that's a Zeppelin song. Same thing for the drummer from Rush. His skills pretty much unmatched. Again, you take all the music away, all the lyrics away, you know automatically that's a Rush song. That drum part was played by Neil Peart. Other influences, drummer from Black Sabbath, Bill Ward, again, same thing. Hits really heavy, but still musical. It's all jazz influenced with, kind of a heavier edge. And then the last influence would be the former drummer from Dream Theater, Mike Portnoy. His parts are symphonic in a way. There are different layers. Even if he plays a simple beat, there's 2 or 3 other things going on that you don't hear right away that bring you into that and makes the song better, makes your experience with that band better. Those are kind of my four top influences.
That's a pretty good selection.
I mean, yeah.
A lot of heavy hitters. That's all musical, and it all sounds great.
I've listened to a few of those bands, but even the ones that I haven't, I feel like I know these names because they're stellar. Like John Bonham, I don't know Zepp enough to talk about it, anything, but I have heard of John Bonham.
For a drummer, it's a little harder to have that kind of name recognition, that you're not going to find very many bands where the drummer is your front man.
It's very few and far between. Yeah, like with Bonham from Zeppelin, there are things that he's doing with one foot on one bass drum pedal that players from like the heaviest bands can barely do with 2. I've seen concert clips where he has his regular drum set, and then he turns part of it, and more in the 70s, he has an electronic, a rig as part of the drum set. He'll turn that on, and he'll put that into the regular acoustic drums, and then he'll switch back and forth. I've seen drum solos where he's throwing the sticks in the crowd and plays with his hands. And it's just as hard and just as heavy as him playing with 2 sticks.
I've seen that referenced in popular media, so that is iconic.
Exactly. And speaking of popular media, going back to the influences, 1 was my dad showing me his kit. 2, and we're about to geek out, because this is Geek Out, Karate Kid Part 2. The drums at the end of that, I looked them up to make sure I got the right name. They're called the Dadaiko. They're the giant bass drum looking drums that the guy has 2 mallets and he's wailing away at them. I saw those, and then saw the hand drum, the Den, and I was like, I gotta do that. I gotta beat something. I gotta hit something. That's my life. That's my focus.
The Taiko style drums are a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you ever get the chance if you see a Taiko drum master, an arcade machine, they're phenomenal.
I will be on the lookout because I really want to. I haven't gotten the chance to play one of those. It's on my list.
There are a few groups in Philadelphia that I know teach that sort of thing, so you might be able just to hop in. I was looking into it for a little while there. But also, if you get the chance, have you ever been to the Cherry Blossom Festival in Fairmount Park?
Have not.
A big feature they have every year is a huge taiko drum demonstration.
Okay.
And it's just, dude, just going ham on it. But it's one of those that's already amazing, but when you have like 2 or 3 and you just have dudes that are just going at it, it's spectacular.
I will check that out and make sure I'm there the next time, because I definitely want to experience that.
I know they were free this year, weren't they?
Yeah, entrance was free.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I think they're all tied in with the Horticultural Society over there. So
Okay.
I get all sorts of emails from them. So anytime they do something that's like, oh, the Japanese Society of Philadelphia is doing something, it's like, all right, what do you got? And oftentimes it's drums.
I'm noting that in my head now, and as soon as we get done here, we're going to research it real quick and see if I can get myself in there.
So, in terms of drums, before we move too far away from influences, are there any songs, specifically drumming, I guess, but are there any songs that you'd be like, all right, if you want to hear great drums or like drum solos or just anything about that, what are those?
If you go to your either vinyl or streaming service of your choice, whatever you use to listen to music, and you type in Stevie Wonder and you hit the song Superstition, Stevie Wonder is playing the drum intro to that song, and he plays the drums on the entire song. That is legendary. As soon as you hear that, you know what you're about to hear, and you strap in. The song Moby Dick from Zeppelin, it's a drum solo. It's about probably 7-8 minutes long. Just crazy stuff. Again, it's that legendary, cemented in my brain song. Iron Butterflies in Agata Davida is also there. The first thing my dad showed me was the drum solo to that song. He could play it note for note, and I still can't to this day. Again, legendary. You can't top that as far as drum songs. There's hundreds. Any jazz song with Buddy Rich on it, legendary. Wipeout, Again, it's as soon as you hear it, you're like, all right, cool. That's something I can try to do on a pot or pan or pillow or whatever. I could sit here for an hour and name all of them, but I would say those are my top few that come to mind.
Is the song Moby Dick 7 to 8 minutes long, or is the drum solo alone?
The song, it's mostly solo.
Yeah, it's still a very long solo.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing a 16-minute song here. It's just, because the majority of it is just drum.
Most of the songs I like, even away from drums, they're just long. They're progressive. They change. They're not your simple, blues song. Though I love the blues. I have no problem with that. I like my music to go on a Hobbit-like adventure. I don't want to go boom to boom. I want to go all over the place. Come back, try that little piece for a minute or two, and I'm tired of that. And Keith Moon my way over there, and then zip back around. So I like my music to be interesting, and drum songs do that for me.
I don't know a lot of jazz, but from some of the I've heard, it can go all over the place, especially some freeform. I don't have an ear for freeform, but when you hear the drums, like that's the one part. It's like, okay, no, I get that.
Yeah, jazz drives my wife crazy. I can listen to it, and I can, kind of like you, I can ingest it, and I get the drum piece. Drums are all over the place in jazz. It's not a steady beat to beat to beat. Again, it goes on that journey, but it's a very, at times, geometric journey. It's all over the place, but if you really listen and you know what you're listening for, you pick up everything, and you know why he's hitting the snare drum with his left hand 15 times while he's hitting the cymbal twice.
So, you were in a band, and you went overseas.
I did. I had a chance to go overseas. Had a chance to go overseas. The Wacken Festival every year has a Battle of the Bands, and we got into that contest in the Arizona chapter, and we were one of 5 other bands. I don't know where we were in the ranking, but just the thought of being in a band as an older person, playing drums that I love, getting a chance to play at the top metal festival in the entire world was insane. That's where the stick flew out of my hand. The Fog Machine kicked off as soon as we started, because our set had a pre-recorded intro. That started playing. The Fog Machine was right next to my head, and it kicked off, and I was losing it. It was insanity. It's like, I gotta hold these sticks. I can't lose them, but the sweat was already going. And we started, and it was the best experience. There was probably maybe 50 people in a little bar in Arizona, but still, the chance for that was there. But also, I was on stage doing something that I love, trying to keep my friends in time, and trying to entertain people out there. And accomplished everything. It was the best.
That kind of prestige on the line. I can imagine that the pressure was mounting, but the exhilaration.
Yes. The video of the whole set still exists. I might share it with you guys at some point. One of the songs is a very Sabbath-y, slow song. My adrenaline was going, and I went 50 times quicker than I was supposed to. The singer was having trouble keeping up because I was going so fast. and I tried to slow down. I just couldn't. I was unleashed. But it was the best. It was the coolest.
Doing live performance. It's so easy to just with friends sit down, play some music, have some fun. But it's so different when there's people watching you and listening. And
it's why that one Van Halen video, the live video is live Van Halen live without a net. You don't have a net. You don't have a seatbelt. You have whatever rehearsal time you put into it. But then as soon as you hit the stage, it's a whole different animal. So you don't have anything holding it together except you and the people you're playing with. And it's a whole different vibe. Speaking of animals, one of the last shows I played with that band before we moved was the Arizona State Fair. And in that fair, there were two stages. There was the small stage and the larger stage. Larger stage was for bigger bands. We were a local band. We were on the smaller stage. Got on and played our set. It was fine. It was great. Unfortunately, we were positioned next to one of the animal exhibits. In Arizona, and as weird as it was, we were positioned next to the sea lion exhibit. And there were two adult sea lions swimming around in the water, doing tricks, going after treats while we were performing. Everyone went over to the sea lions to check them out. And it's like, hey, where you going? And some came back, but we lost out to sea lions, so it's all good.
They are one of the, it's not an animal you get to see often, I imagine, especially in Arizona.
Yeah,
exactly.
That threw me for a loop.
Yeah, it threw me for a loop too. Like, we have sea lions there. I mean, we're close enough to California, but still, this is the desert.
Yeah.
So
not their favored habitat by any means.
No.
I was kind of hoping you were going to say that the sea lions stopped to, listen to you guys. Because I imagine, they could probably feel it through the water. So.
Yeah. That's like one of the most common ways to manipulate like certain reptiles is you'll play the drums because they feel those vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Exactly.
Most of the times, you'll see that old caricature of the person playing the flute to tame the snake. It's actually them tapping their foot. Mm-hmm. It's getting the snake's attention, not the flute.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I thought it was because that's why they moved. Because then the snake tracks the...
Yeah, that they're following them, but to get the attention.
Yeah, if you watch their feet, if they're sitting cross-legged, sometimes you can see one of their feet doing that. With water, it's another highway for sound to travel. During one of my concert bands in college, we had a song that required a water drum. And there's all sorts of definitions of water drums, but this one was, we literally had a giant wash basin, 3/4 full of water. And that was a nightmare in and of itself. Water all over a wood stage. But then one of the percussionists had to take a gong, put the gong in the water, hit the gong, and as he hit it, he had to pull it out of the water almost all the way. And the sound from that traveled way to the back of the hall over whatever we were playing. They weren't prepared for it because we couldn't practice it in the rehearsal space because you don't want to fill that basin full of water 3 times a week for a month. Yeah. So we just had to wing it. And they couldn't hear my tuba play. They couldn't hear the trumpet. It was just gong in our ears for a half hour. Never again. But water is definitely a vessel.
Just makes me think of that entire segment from Metapocalypse, a death metal band writing music for underwater creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, you never recorded on water, right?
No. Gotcha. No, I've not scratched that off of my list. One day, hopefully, get on a boat or a cruise ship, do a little recording. That would be great.
Well, they do have metal cruises.
They do?
I've heard those are always a blast.
Yes. One day.
In fact, one of my favorite live albums, was actually on a cruise. It just has some of the best performances I've ever heard from one of my favorite bands. So,
what was that?
What was it? It was 2014 Sabaton Cruise.
Oh yeah.
So just some of their renditions were just a bit faster, but that just changes a lot of it, and it was like, whoa, completely different.
And that's when you know you have a good band on your hands. If they're identify the songs, but they can take it to that nth level and go for it a little bit. That's when you know you have a good band.
What are your favorite bands now? I mean, just in general.
In general, my walking to work music is always Dream Theater, always and forever, since 1991. All the heavy stuff I like. I'll throw in jazz every now and then to kind of change the pace. and get some quieter, calmer things, and not the erratic, freeform jazz, more straightforward instrumental background jazz. I'll listen to that. I was just at a concert a couple weeks ago. Saw Dream Theater, but also saw a musician named Devin Townsend. He's been around forever. He was in a band called Strapping Young Lad and a bunch of other bands. He had a solo set with him and his band, and it was, I don't want to say life-changing, because there's other things that are life-changing, but when he sings and plays guitar, it will send shockwaves up your spine. It's so great. Just very musical, and will take you so many other places. And anything that's super musical, listen to. I was just kind of researching other drummers that weren't specifically in that pop, like rock, jazz, metal genre. And there's a drummer from Scotland, Evelyn Glennie. She is a fantastic solo percussionist, plays everything. She's profoundly deaf. She lost her hearing at the age of 12, and I'm not sure exactly what percentage she can hear. It's not much, but she's won awards on top of awards on top of awards as a discography, 30 albums long. Played for royalty, played for all sorts of places, all without being able to really hear what she's doing. She has a great TED Talk. I think it's called How to Truly Listen. It shows like she takes her shoes off before she performs, and she feels the vibrations. That's how she knows. I mean, she can read music and she knows what she's playing. Like, she plays the marimba and she knows the notes she's going to play on that, but she can't hear. She feels those vibrations, and she's kind of my recent go-to is listening to things that she pulls out. So great. Besides that, it's kind of what I said before, that Dream Theater thing, jazz. Soundtracks are always great. Sometimes there's not a lot of drums to them. I always add them in my head if they're not there, because sometimes I feel like they should be there. That's kind of what's on my menu right now.
There's actually a guy on YouTube I watched ages ago. I'm sure they're still going. Called himself 8-Bit Drummer, and that was kind of his whole thing. Is he would take tracks that didn't already have a drum beat and add them in.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just need to add it. There's a guy now who'll take kind of the same idea. He'll take regular songs and he'll add like the metal fast stuff to it, and it's ridiculous. But also, like, you had the same idea too. Everyone's had that same idea. Yeah. You want to do blast beats to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song? Go right ahead. He did it for you.
We have to check specifically that one out now. Because I am just going to have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme stuck in my head for the rest of the day.
Exactly. That's part of my point. part of my purpose.
We've talked a bit about, the difference between a drum kit and a snare drum. We've now mentioned a water drum, which I can't say I've ever actually heard before, but from the sounds of it, I'm probably the better for that. But are there any other percussion instruments you're fond of? Anything else that you play?
Let's see. One of the ones, and I still have it, when my daughter was a baby, we got a little kid set of bongos. One was about the diameter here, one was a little smaller here. My daughter loved playing that. She'd take her hands and beat on it. And after she went to bed, I'd take it out to my garage, my little studio area, take my sticks and put it on my drum kit and add to it. And it sounds great. A little toy drum sounds great when you hit it with a stick. I still pull it out every now and then, just kind of tap on it. Calling the drums here, I'll play those to warm them up before the kids come in. I'll dig through the tambourines and tap on them. That's pretty much it as far as drums. That's kind of my go-to as the kit and things that we have here. Just tapping tables, inanimate objects will get me every time. There's sounds everywhere. Language is a sound. People walking is a sound. Conversations in the library is a sound. There's no conversations. The clock that's right behind my head is so loud, but I still put beats to it. I'm trying to play and digesting everything. There's beat everywhere.
This was probably about a decade ago now. There's a British comedian, Bill Bailey. He does a lot of musical things, and he at one point I think Metallica was supposed to go on tour, but I think their drummer was sick, and he filmed a video offering, he's like, oh, you can, I can be your percussionist. And the video is him doing the intro bit to Enter Sandman, but with bicycle horns.
That's amazing. Why he didn't get in?
I have no idea. That man is hilarious and a musical genius.
That's amazing.
But has that sort of thing ever interested you? Like any other sort of percussion or,
Yeah, interesting. You were talking about Metalocalypse. The drummer, the actual physical human drummer that does that stuff, Gene Hoglan, is kind of famous for adding things to his kit. I've never done this. I would love to. When he was younger, he took a boat wheel. No, it wasn't a boat wheel. It was a propeller. Took the propeller and attached it somehow, I think, to a cymbal stand, a triply reinforced cymbal stand. Put the propeller on, spun the propeller, and played it like a cymbal. That kind of a thing is in my head all the time. What can I turn into like a junk kit? What in here? Like every time I come in here, like I can play the mattress part of the chair and the wood and the table and get 3 different sounds and make something out of it.
Yeah,
I can pull 5 books off of the used book sale shelves and get something out of it.
Something that, depending on what they used to cover them, how long they were.
Exactly. How damaged they are, if they've gotten wet and dried and mildew. There's a nice little wet thunk you get out of it.
Hopefully,
I've tried.
Back there.
The library does not endorse soaking any of your books, especially any that belong to us, in any form of liquid.
Yeah, I mean, if it's your book, you do you, obviously. But please do not put any of our books in any kind of liquid.
We will not be accepting them back. Thank you so much.
You will be charged with it.
But we do encourage you to explore your creativity and musical endeavors.
Yes.
As long as they don't involve
as long
any
as it
of
doesn't damage our property.
our non-musical property.
Go crazy with the folks. Just be cautious.
Drumming on them is probably fine. It's really just don't,
Yeah.
Within reason.
Yes.
Don't drum on the DVD cases. They don't need any more.
They are already not holding together.
Yes.
You mentioned junk kits. Is that like a thing?
Yeah, there are some schools, and I've been a teacher forever, and there's some classes where a musically inclined teacher will teach either recycling or plastics or whatever the lesson is. They've been able to tie drums into it, and they'll say, all right, you need to make a kit out of these 10 items. Put them together. Make what you can. College people did that all the time. They took random stuff and put it together. You can turn, use anything. I've seen people put together kits out of glass bottles and cardboard and play them until the bottles break. But it still made a sound.
Yeah.
And still scratches that itch that drummers get, musicians get.
I've made the mistake of using glass for percussion once or twice myself. It's fun until it isn't. Mm-hmm. Cleaning it up is not a good time.
And then you just make music out of the broom and the dustpan, which you can.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you can even use put the glass in something and make some sort of a shaking thing.
Oh, yeah.
But then I would also add a disclaimer.
Please
do not break glass.
Exercise extreme caution. If you have Tupperware you're not using.
Yeah, actually,
that's great.
Get some good sounds out of Tupperware.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you close the lid and then beat it and then open it a little bit, and then shut it back down. Get some great tones out of it.
What sort of odd things have produced the best sounds?
Chairs are great. Not so much these kind of padded folding chairs, but chairs that have a nice cushion that are wood-based, have a nice ring to it. Let's see what else. Garage floors, like concrete or cement-laid floors, get a nice good tap, and if your garage is clean and organized, you'll get a nice ping echo around the whole thing. That adds a little extra tone to whatever you're playing. Bottles, books, some phone cases, if they're nice and bouncy, can take sticks and get some kind of practice out of that. The case I have on my phone now, not so good. Other cases I've had before, you can get a nice bounce out of it. It's pretty much, like chairs, like furniture is pretty good. It's kind of the thing, if you take, if you're playing an acoustic or an electric guitar, if you put the neck on the wood part of a chair or a couch, you get natural amplification. Same thing with drums. If you're hitting a certain part, you're going to get like a dull thud. If you hit another wood part with something on top of it, you get an entirely different tone. I would say furniture is one of those things I go to within reason. Do not hit your parents' furniture, please. Do not hit our furniture, please.
In general,
this is just
permission.
Exactly.
Generally a good idea. I've had a lot of luck getting really fun noises out of springs, actually.
Ooh.
Like bed spring. Anything from the suspension of a car will get you some phenomenal noises. Engines. Anything that's like that big and metal. Curvatures will get some really neat sounds, I find. I've yelled at a lot for this as a child because my dad was a mechanic and I thought everything was a drum at a certain age.
You're just talking about banging on it, not necessarily starting them up.
I mean, that would probably have been equally interesting of a sound added to the whole system.
Go from nothing to turn
and
it
then
off.
as it's vibrating, drumming on it again will get you probably a completely different set of sounds.
So will a flat tire. That will give you another
Yeah.
interesting beat.
Usually not a pleasant experience to hear, unfortunately.
No.
Very rarely is that a sound anyone's excited to get, but it is an interesting sound.
It is. And if somebody hasn't put that on a recording yet, please, somebody out there do that. I would love to hear that put through some type of mixer or phaser or something to see what sounds you can get out of that.
That'd be a fun job, just going around, like, just recording random things, going, all right, let's see if we can do something with this.
I think closed now, but there was a whole section in the Franklin Institute's Disney exhibit about how they made sound effects. That was phenomenal.
Like the Foley artists?
Yeah, all the Foley stuff.
I'd love to do that.
They had the specific wind chimes that they used for, like, Tinkerbell's flying sound. Like, neat stuff.
That is a dream.
Yeah, if FoleyWorks teaches us anything, it's anything can be used to create music. It's balloons rubbing together, a bottle with a 50-cent piece somehow jammed into it, like...
Carry 2 50-pound backpacks and a helmet, you're going to sound like an orc, ladies and gentlemen.
Or if you want to make a Godzilla noise, you get a cello and you get a glove soaked in resin and you just pull it across the strings.
Oh, man. That's amazing. That's the life right there. So that's the retirement dream.
Yeah, I watched, what was it? Ruby Kids on YouTube did a breakdown of his Foley work when he did one of his animations, which was like in a castle and, there's like rocks falling or whatever. He was like, I went out and collected a bunch of rocks, put them in like a plastic bucket and dropped it, or he just, poured them out or whatever. And I was like, wow, I've done that as a kid and it never sounded this good. But, if you're really listening for it.
Exactly. The Judas Priest song Metal Gods, there's a clanging metal part in, I believe, the chorus. The drummer took his wife's, like, out of the kitchen, took his wife's appliance, like, utensil drawer, picked it up, and boom, dropped it on the table with a microphone right next to it, and just repeated that in beats of the song. And you don't hear it until you know what happened, and you hear the song, you're like, oh yeah, that's the fork sound there. That's the nice clang of the spoons together. Pick it up. It's so cool.
Bring him up again, but the Sabaton song, Lost Battalion, the main, like, sort of percussion beat in that entire song is used with guns. I think they're just pulling back. It might be like machine gun, but I forget what it is. Not like firing it, but, just the funk of all, like, pulling the pin back, and it's this neat, just doing it in beat. It sounds amazing.
Yeah. You can turn anything into sound and percussion. It's so cool. I love that world.
And it's this world. It's all around.
Yeah. Again, responsibly. Explore.
Exactly.
Make some noise. Have some fun with it.
Try to find something that mimics your own heartbeat, whatever that may be. It could be a balloon with felt on it. It could be a table with 3 pillows. Who knows? But everybody has their own percussion instrument right there. Listen to it and explore from that branch out, and you'll be better for it.
Some solid life advice right there.
Sage advice from Mr. Brad.
I'm familiar with Stomp as familiar as I think anyone is just watching, somebody talk about, oh yeah, we went to go see Stomp, and it's like, oh, what is it? Well, it's sort of percussion. I can't even describe it. I shouldn't even continue this thought.
It's like with the Stomp thing, it's like that junk kit issue we're talking about, but exactly. It's spread out. There's that. Blue Man Group is a whole different ballgame.
Experimental junk kit, maybe, I guess?
Yes.
Like, they've done a lot of experimenting with, lengths of pipes and things like that. Implementing a lot of visual elements to go along with their percussion, which does tend to be really neat.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, with this whole conversation we're having about drums, it's, we started with, it's the body and the soul and the brain. But if you're in a performance setting, you have that, but you need the performance part of it. You're not just up there by yourself feeling at one with the world. You have to show it. So Blue Man Group does a fantastic job of that. The colors and the outfits and the costumes and the lengths of pipe and all that crazy stuff. It all adds to that value in sharing whatever your gift is with everybody. I've never seen them in person. That's one of the things I would love to do. Never seen them. Have any of you seen them in person? You can get more.
No, I've seen a lot of recordings. A lot of my early experiences with knowing about the band is I remember seeing all of the commercials as a kid and never really thinking much of it. And then of course there's the whole subplot in Arrested Development with them. That's one of those things that I had forgotten about them, and I was I never did get to see them, and I still kind of want to. It's good to know they're still touring, I guess.
I'm going to say the only thing I knew about them was Arrested Development, so I'm glad you brought it up.
And I don't watch Arrested Development, so don't really know a lot about that.
It's a gag, but if you're interested in the Blue Man Group, it does not matter.
Yeah,
it's in the grand scale of things.
But it does lead to a lot of good puns, as most of Tobias's stuff in that show do. What I've seen of them, I've not seen them live, but they did do a recording before a show for Penn and Teller. They, of course, fly in similar circles in the whole Vegas entertainment crowd, and they were doing some really fascinating things, especially, as I said, with color, because they would have several percussion instruments. A lot of them are basically industrial equipment, but a lot of what they were using for snare drums, they just had a layer of bright colored paint. So when they would hit it with the sticks, you would just see a splash as the thing hit. It didn't seem to be thick enough that it was changing the pitch of the sound too much, but it did give you that really cool effect that I've seen replicated in music videos and where, people were playing the drums and you'll have these big splashes of colors they're hitting it. I remember the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World movie. They had a scene similar to that worked really well. And it's an interesting thing to try and visualize percussion, especially, because it is so bombastic and larger than life. It is the centerpiece of everything in music, really.
Exactly. The play of color and light is... Next time you go to a concert, take a second and forget about the music. Watch the light show if they have a light show. There is percussion in that. There's beats in that. The strobe light is going to go like that.
Yep.
There's tempo in that. One of my favorite light interplays with drums is, going back to the metal world, the drummer from Pantera, in one of their videos, there was just a performance recording, but they lit one of his sticks on fire, and he was playing the song with his stick on fire and hitting the cymbal. So in the video, you see the flame from the stick, but also every time he hits a cymbal, you see the light from the cymbal reflect in the cymbal, goes in the circle around the cymbal, and shoots back out. It's the craziest thing. It's just the simple act of lighting a drumstick on fire and hitting the cymbal brings that extra element to the whole package.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
I remember seeing a video, I think it was the Slow-Mo guys, but they took paint and they put it on a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
They poured it into a speaker and then they played it. And because everything they do is they slow everything down, but you can see as, the different waves go, there's different patterns in the paint as it, splashes up, and they all mix, but they still stay sort of separate. Really neat, really cool stuff.
It just kind of makes me miss Winamp sold Visualizer.
I was getting ready to say the same thing.
Why would you discontinue that feature? Honestly.
It's the best. What music can I play to make that green flame go that much higher?
Yep. iTunes had a visualizer too.
Yeah,
it's just
they also discontinued that.
Went down like a Doctor Who tunnel, and it was whoa.
Understand, I am now going to spend probably the next 2 days just researching visualizing music, because now I just have that topic in my head.
And I can't recall the name of the company right now, but there's somebody out there who can take songs and will run them through, this might be a part to scrap, but they run it through some kind of a visualizer type, and you'll see the individual, they have it set up as bars. They're all red, and you'll see where the song starts out slow or quiet and it gets louder. You can see all the bars, and they're really tightly put together, but it makes this unique art, and they've printed the art on paper and framed it, and they sell it. You can pick your favorite song and get an art piece of that song.
I think I've seen people do tattoos for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just people getting waveforms of specific things tattooed on them.
Exactly.
Were there any live shows that blew you away? Have you ever been to any that you were just changed what you think or what you thought or what you felt?
There's been a bunch, and I'll keep going back to it just because that's where my brain is at. But seeing Dream Theater now 4 times, Every show is different. They play the same songs, but the musicality, it's always there, but they put something different into it. Every concert, there's been at least one musical moment where I've broken down in tears because it's that good and it hits that particular chord on that particular day that will emotionally make you so happy that will send you there. Things like that. The first show that I saw in college at the college gym was a 4-band package back in 2000. Pantera, Soulfly, Morbid Angel, and Nothing Face. I was right next to the speaker. I had never been to a full live show before, just performances and things like that, nothing big. And I said, yeah, I need to see the stage, because I don't see that well. I want to get up close to the stage. Bad choice. My ear was red, I couldn't hear, but man, I was jamming out. That was a life changer. Just great drum parts, great music, just the whole package, that whole thing. It was like, my body and my brain feel right. I don't want to lose this moment. And for me, like live performances from any band, really, it doesn't have to be that metal stuff. It can be anything. If it's done well, it hits me in that part. It just makes me feel centered. It makes me feel right with everything. Things could be crazy anywhere, but if I have that centering, I'm A-okay. I would say those would be the top things.
I feel like everyone has also made that big mistake of, I'm going to sit as close to this stage as I can.
Mm.
One point got to see the Pillows, a Japanese band, perform live. I was in the 3rd row. I could not hear after that concert for about 2.5 hours. I was constantly being told, you are yelling, because I could not tell.
You were in that unique cloud of your own little bubble. That's awesome. Not so awesome for your hearing.
Yeah. I thankfully I learned from that mistake, and if I'm going to sit that close, I bring earplugs now. It's very rare that I manage to get that close anymore, unless it's something weird. Big fan of MagFest, which is mostly musicians who do things for video games, and those stages you can get pretty close to. And thankfully, they are smart enough to just hand out the earplugs as you go.
I think that's kind of the newer. I mean, it's not new, but it's the new wave of music in general, is the video game stuff. In our Science in the Summer program, one of our experiments is the backstory is your video game designer employer needs you to create a new sound for the video game. And you need to make it, but then suddenly you realize you can't hear it. So you need to come up with an amplification device. The actual experiment is you take a coat hanger, you tie 2 pieces of thread to it, you line the thread around your fingers, put your fingers in your ear, and you tap the hook end of the hanger into the table, and it makes this unique sound that no one outside of you can hear. Yeah. But you can hear it. And then the kids will, make the craziest amplification devices. When we did last time, there were kids that had plates and cups and all sorts of crazy things. And you still couldn't hear it, but it was still an amazing experiment.
Yeah, there's a track from Team Fortress 2. I believe it's called The Art of War, but I think it's entirely percussive.
Yeah.
I think the main part is a taiko drum, but it's I'm trying to think back, like, all right, well, soundtracks, and that just sticks right out just because it's just nice.
It's right there.
Fast, it's good.
Yeah, that the whole military war thing and drums are tied together too.
That used to literally be how they kept the soldiers organized. You listen for your drummer.
You hear that paradiddle, you're going to go right. And if you go left, sorry.
You're going to probably bump into the person who was standing next to you a minute ago.
Exactly. There is in Nigeria, and I'm blanking on the language right now, there's a language that's spoken, and people have created drums to mimic that sound because the pitches are high and low. And the drums are pitched similar to that. And supposedly, when you play those drums, you're supposed to have been able to communicate with people 30 miles away. Same thing with the military communication. It takes you to that whole different language piece, too. You can communicate with a simple 2 taps on the table. And that means something to somebody, somewhere.
Very easy to use drums for Morse code, for example. I'm sure fairly often they have been used for exactly that.
The Rush song YYZ, also known as YYZ, that is Morse code based. The drum part to that is Morse code. YYZ, the Morse code beats, that's the drum part that he plays at the very beginning of the symbol. Great fodder for songs, for sure.
I've sort of tried to learn Morse code just for fun, and also that one submarine 3DS game where that was the only way you could communicate with other players was you had to tap it out, and that was fun but annoying, and I never learned it. But from watching old cartoons and things, I remember SOS, and I can still keep that beat in my head. And every once in a while, I'll tap it out because that rhythm does just sort of stick.
Everyone that's listening to this, you'll hear it somewhere in the next week.
You probably already know it, and if you don't, you'll probably hear it sooner than you'd think.
It's going to come out somewhere. Someone's going to shake iced coffee with ice, and it's going to be SOS or anything anywhere. It's going to come out.
That would be a fun, like an app if you had it. You just turn on just the microphone, and if you just walk around it hearing different things, maybe what words have just been tapped out, like by the environment. Even if it's like two different unrelated things, if something's just making dashes, other things making dots, just like, you walk around and it probably wouldn't make any sense, but like maybe you find out something, you went by a jackhammer and it said giraffe.
That is very unique. I love it. If anybody is planning on developing that, we need credit. Lansdowne Library, please. No, that would be fantastic. That's got some legs. Yeah.
Just listening to the natural rhythm around you and seeing what is picked up.
It's kind of like the Merlin Bird app. You can get that, turn the audio ID on, walk around, and it will pick up all the bird sounds and will tell you what the bird is.
Which birds
give you a description. The only bad thing about that is it picks up dogs as turkeys. So I was on my porch a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I heard a turkey, and it came across wild turkey. I'm like, okay, there's a wild turkey. And I talked to some people about it, and they're like, it picks up dogs as wild turkeys. So
we have had wild turkeys in Lansdowne. So
if we've had bears, we could have turkeys.
Yeah, God, there was one that was named.
Yeah, I used to see it. It used to walk through my yard.
The town was aware of one of the wild turkeys. It was that large.
It backed up Lansdowne Avenue because it would just take its time walking across the street. And cars would honk at it, and it would just stare at them like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It said nothing because it's a turkey. It's a turkey.
The longer I'm in this town, the more I love it. I've been here 3 years, and I've heard amazing things. That makes Lansdowne that much cooler.
Lansdowne has some fun lore.
Love it.
For some reason, we have a town flag. For some reason, it has a centaur on it. This is true. Look it up.
I've seen it.
I can find zero information about why our flag has a centaur on it, and I have looked.
If anyone at Borough Council wants to listen, if you want to start selling those flags, that'd probably be a great way to get up some extra revenue. I'm in.
Clearly, we need to just have somebody dressing up as a centaur for events. Like, come on, market this.
Lansdowne. No, because then they have to name it. And you're going to get like Larry the Lansdowne Centaur or something, and that's just not cool.
I mean, as long as they don't put it up for a vote and we end up with Centaur McCentaur face.
I think I'd take that over.
Larry the Lansdowne
Larry is equally bad.
One thing I definitely do want to ask, it's crossed my mind now in terms of like percussion oddities. What is your opinion on using explosives in percussion? Specifically, Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture finale.
If you are outside in a well-spaced venue, far away from everybody, far away from ears and children and adults and senior citizens alike, and you do this responsibly for performance, I have no problem with that because it fits. If the song calls for it, there's nothing wrong with that performance and using that. There are other songs. Berlioz is another composer. One of his songs, he required, I believe it was 10 or 11 timpani players to play on the song. And you can recreate that thunderous, booming, rolling sound with that if you're not using an explosive device. But if the song calls for it and it's written and you're doing it so responsibly, no problem.
Can you tune a cannon?
Muffle it, maybe?
I mean,
I don't know.
I imagine
it's out of my wheelhouse.
I imagine the sound would be more decided by the caliber of the cannon. Like, it's going to be how much cannon you have more than anything else, which is a weird sentence when you say it out loud, but it's entirely accurate. It's, a larger cannon will, of course, make a larger sound. I imagine there would also be a very big difference in sound depending on if it's loaded or not, how much gunpowder you use. I've got a flintlock pistol, and I can tell you from experience, it makes a very small pop if their powder isn't densely compacted, compared to if you actually have a round in there, it's much louder. So I guess you wouldn't so much tune the cannon as you would tune the powder.
Yeah, whatever they use to make blanks. I know they do it, but...
Well, I think in the case of that style of cannon, you don't even make, like, a blank. It's just you have usually, like, a ball of tinfoil full of gunpowder that never actually escapes the cannon. I have an odd amount of experience in this field.
This is a very, very niche conversation right now.
Well, that's the whole point of the
Exactly,
podcast,
exactly.
Really.
In that same realm, the old Western movies, when you get shots fired, you get the pings off of rocks and billboards. Those have tones, too.
Yeah.
You can tune those up a little bit.
Just in fairness, again, most of that would bring us back to Foley work more than anything else.
But you're looking for that
It's all
tune.
about that weird, distinct sound.
That you need to make, however you're going to make it.
Experiment safely and within reason.
Actually, no. In this case, please do not experiment with gunpowder.
No.
Unless you are a trained professional. I should not have as much knowledge about gunpowder as I do, and I still would not trust myself to experiment. Very specific measurements I take, and stay within those parameters.
Leave that to professionals on the 4th of July.
And even then, take them
Again, the professionals. I know you can just buy fireworks now, but please remember that every 4th of July is somebody's last day with 10 fingers.
Please refrain from setting off said fireworks after midnight, preferably, on any given night.
Honestly, just don't. Please just don't.
Unless you want to hear 100 tones of dogs ringing through your head all night.
Do like a good firework. It makes a very nice sound.
It does. Again, probably how you would do the replacement for the cannon now would just be a mortar firework. Get similar sound, but much safer and much more convenient than lugging a multi-ton steel cannon around with you.
Yeah, but what kind of conductor are you if you skimp on it? People come to see the cannons, you gotta give them cannons.
If cannon's written, we must provide cannons. One of my conductors in college was like that. It's like, if it's written, you gotta do it. If it says play as loud as you can, and there's instructions, you play as loud as you can. If the rest of the band can't hear themselves think afterwards, it's written.
That's how it's written.
So shall be done.
Is there any final thoughts you'd like to share? Any advice for somebody who wants to get into percussion?
Yes, I would start with simple tapping on something. Your pillow or a bed. Start there. Just mimic your heartbeat and see how that feels. And then if you want to experiment, branch out from there. Tap on other things. If you're lucky enough to have some type of drum in your house, or you're lucky enough to have a drum kit in your house, or whatever you have, experiment. Do what feels good. Keep yourself in time. And once you have that part under your feet and your hands, the rest is going to be piece of cake. Your body, brain, your whole being will be centered, will be one with everything. Everything will be gravy. Hit those drums.
Hit those drums. Well, I guess if anyone has any other questions, they can always find you here at Children's Section.
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Mondays until 7.
If you'd like to come on our show and geek out about something with us, Jeff, what do they need to do?
You can head on over to our website over at lansdownelibrary.org/podcasts, and there'll be a green register here button. You click that, give you a little form to fill out to let us know you're interested in coming and talking with us.